Welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to get honest about what story you want to write. I'm going to make a guess that you started this course because you already have a sense of what you want to write about in your memoir. But I know from coaching hundreds of authors that it can be easy to think about your memoir in general terms, but difficult to decide what goes in it or not. For some people, this is just a matter of getting clear on what's at the heart of your story, and I'll talk you through that in this lesson. But for many people, there's an additional challenge. Deep down, you know what you want to write, but it's hard to be courageous enough to admit it to yourself because you know there might be real consequences. For example, one of the writers that I work with wants to write about his childhood, but he's afraid his mom will feel hurt if he writes honestly about the impact their relationship had on him as a kid. He feels responsible for his mom's emotions, and that causes him to censor what stories he's willing to go into, even just for himself. Another writer I know wants to write about her journey of leaving her relationship with someone who struggles with addiction, but they have kids together and she's worried if she gets honest about her experience, it will change things in her family. I am not saying these writers should brush these concerns aside. They're looking ahead to real consequences that could happen if they choose to publish these stories. But the point is, these worries are directly related to the reasons they want to write, because they have a story bottled up inside of them that they've never given space or voice to. And these concerns loom so large in their mind that they struggle to write their story, even just for themselves. There's a simple mindset shift that will help you work through these fears and get clear on the book you want to write, which is to separate memoir writing from publishing. Any consequences you fear around what others might think or do are only relevant when or if you share your story. Here's the thing. Writing a memoir takes a long time, at least several months, if not years. As you learned in the last lesson, it's a therapeutic process. So as you write, you're also growing and healing. By the time you've fully explored your story and let yourself write everything you needed to express, I guarantee you will be different. This happened to me. I started writing my first book when I was ashamed to share my thoughts and feelings with many people in my life, including romantic partners and my parents. But writing about those relationships helped me get clear on my perspective and my feelings as separate from what their perspective and feelings were. Seeing my experience on the page helped me take responsibility for how I was showing up in those relationships. Through writing, I started to develop the courage to talk to the people in my life more openly and honestly. And those relationships, some of them started to deepen, some of them shifted well before I was done writing the book. When I decided to publish, I was still very afraid of potential consequences, particularly with exes I had written about. I thought people might sue me, but I was clearer on what those relationships had been for me and what my boundaries now were. And I was very surprised to find that I was willing to take those consequences on. I found ways to both share my story and protect myself at the same time. And there were solutions I never would have thought of when I was stewing in that initial fear before I started writing. The point is, giving yourself permission to write the book you know you need will change you. And that means your perception of the consequences and your skill and your willingness to work through them will also change in ways you can't anticipate. This brings us to the prompt that will help you decide what your memoir will be about. What part of your life do you want to be honest about? It can be helpful to identify a focus rather than try to address your whole life. Your memoir can be about a specific time period of your life, such as childhood, adolescence, or a particular decade, or it can be about a specific facet of your life. For example, a relationship with a parent, or your relationship with a religion or the culture that you grew up in, or your relationship with yourself and how it changed over your life. I'm grappling with finding this focus right now in my second memoir. I started by writing about my decision not to have children and how I came to that decision and what that brings up for me around ideas of what family means and lineage and legacy. And then I wrote a whole draft on that topic. And the memoir just felt flat when I was done. The focus was too narrow, and I could feel that I didn't express what I'd really wanted to, what I was really writing this book for. So I've opened the aperture on this story, and I started writing more broadly about my whole life. And now I feel like I've got some stories that hit an emotional core for me, but don't connect into a cohesive book. I'm still searching for the focus that will help me go deep into what I want to explore. All this to say, your focus may change over time, but it's helpful to identify one so that you know which stories you'll write for now. So spend some time with that question. What do I want to get honest about in my life? In the next lesson, we'll get into how to make a list of stories that will make up your memoir, and then we'll get into how to write them.